Ladies, gentlemen,
Thank you for watching. We are going to be talking about the EU, how the EU is addressing the escalating crisis in southern Cameroon, and we going to be discussing some of the key points that were discussed in the EU Parliament about the escalation situation in Cameroon, Ambazonia. What we have seen along the years is a kind of neglect and a pro-France agenda to stall any discussion process, any to entertain any form of dialogue or negotiation that want to take place, and that we have seen along the years has been successful according to them, but it has instead created a vacuum of political and the escalation of the crisis, and other media have taken it and it has exploded. Okay, and we are very happy for the Russia support. Other countries now we have EU, other countries that are really pushing hard for negotiation process to start. Okay, and we that's what we're gonna be talking today. Okay, before we come back, make sure you share, you subscribe, you make sure you hit the follow button for more. We'll be coming back after this interlude. Thank you. Thank you. This is Comrade Fritz Misodi. This is your humble host for the program Political Analyst and Political Lab Talk Show. And I'm very happy that you are watching me all over the world. And we are trying to dissect what is happening in Southern Cameroon because of the neglect. They call it the most neglected crisis, is because a lot of people don't understand what is going on. That's why we're trying to make it known that the people of Ambazonia, Southern Cameroon, are still making the world know that they are fighting for their freedom, for their right, for their independence, for their recognition, and that is what they are fighting for. And so different countries, different people have different opinions, but that will not change the fact, okay, that Southern Cameroon was a country and they were asked to join Nigeria or join Cameroon, La République du Cameroon. Today, they are in that limbo, okay? They are in that situation where uh, the international community is neglecting the crisis in the form that they don't want to help to go with the negotiation process. Okay, the European Union, we all know, maintain a very consistent, supportive, but very cautious stance towards the Ambazonian Cameroon conflict. We have seen their approaches. You know, they advocate for inclusive and more of a sustainable political dialogue involving all stakeholders. We have seen them uh, pressure the Biya government issue of human rights, and we have seen them trying to press the government of Bobia to respect and protect the people of Ambazonia, the minority people. And we have also seen them coming in to support the internal mediation initiative, like the one that took place between Switzerland and other one that took place in Canada. So the other issues that we saw the EU really emphasize on was the disruption of the education and lack of accountability. And the EU also very very concerned with the deteriorating situation. Okay, and uh, I'll give some points to you about some key takeaways. But before we do that, we're gonna see a lot of reaction from the EU. Okay, and let's see what their reaction is, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's get a brief.
Give the floor to the next speaker, author Madame Arana, s'il vous plaît.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Au Cameroun, après le référendum constitutionnel de 1972, le système du gouvernement fédéraliste garantissant la représentation des 20% d'anglophones a été abandonné au profit d'un système centralisé qui donne l'avantage aux francophones. Depuis, les anglophones au Cameroun souffrent d'une marginalisation accrue qui n'a fait que s'empirer. En 2016, les enseignants et avocats de la région du sud-ouest et nord-ouest anglophones se mettent en grève car ils estiment que le gouvernement majoritairement francophone tente de réduire le système de common law et l'enseignement pratiqué en anglais dans ces régions. La réaction du gouvernement Biya est sans appel, une réponse militaire dure qui fait émerger les mouvements séparatistes et manifestations violentes. S'enclenche alors une spirale violente entre le gouvernement sourd à des revendications légitimes et s'engageant à détruire tous ceux qui veulent diviser la nation, et une radicalisation des mouvements séparatistes anglophones qui s'arment contre le pouvoir francophone de Yaoundé et qui répriment tous ceux qui afficheraient une non-affiliation à leur cause. Les victimes, comme toujours, la population civile massacrée, 3000 morts, privés d'école, obligés de fuir, plus d'1 million de déplacés aujourd'hui au Cameroun. Actuellement, ce gouvernement Biya...
If you can understand what she's talking about the start of the crisis in 2017, how Biya used his military to kill the people of southern Cameroon, to occupy the land of southern Cameroon. This is EU. This is the House of, this is the European Union. How they're talking about the how Biya has used his military to occupy the land of Ambazoni. Okay, and you hear a lot of discussions on that. Okay.
Refuse toujours de prendre en compte les demandes d'éléments modérés pour un retour au fédéralisme qui accorderait aux régions une plus grande autonomie. Et les séparatistes, par ailleurs divisés, campent sur leur demande d'indépendance. Nous avons aujourd'hui un certain nombre de revendications. Nous demandons une aide humanitaire, nous demandons également qu'un dialogue puisse s'établir et nous demandons que le service d'action extérieure aide à aller dans ce sens. Merci.
Merci. Let me invite next speaker, author Mr. Andrews. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues. 2 weeks ago, 7-year-old Brandy Tatau was shot and killed by a police officer while walking home from school in Bamenda, a city in northwest Cameroon. Brandy is just one of thousands of young girls who are the utterly innocent victims of the armed conflict in Cameroon over the past 5 years. The forced schools boycott in the Anglophone regions has exposed children to child recruitment by terrorist organisations, forced labour, forced childhood marriage and sexual abuse. Children make up 28% of all cases of gender-based violence in Cameroon, and 13% of girls are married before the age of 15. Yeah, today we mark the International Day of...
This is the European Parliament talking. And some of us may not understand the gravity of the situation. And, this is the occupation of the land of people of southern Cameroon. And the EU, I'm very grateful that they are taking responsibility. They are taking this challenge to discuss about this, because the Biya regime have stalled all negotiation processes. They have tried to block any country that want to talk about this thing. Okay. And I was so happy that countries like Russia are coming in to talk about it. Okay. Now we have the EU. We have other parliament that are talking about it. Okay. But this is something from the British, no, the Italian Prime Minister, who was very mad at France, the way France is treating some of its allies. Okay. She wasn't happy. Take a listen.
La presse doit demeurer la tribune du peuple, la censure est l'arme de ceux qui ont déjà tout perdu. Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, le Cameroun est un pays riche de son paysage médiatique. 600 journaux, 200 radios et plus de 60 chaînes de télévision. Pourtant, il est à la 138e place sur 170 au classement de Reporters sans frontières. Du fait d'une triple colonisation allemande, française et anglaise, les tensions entre francophones et anglophones sont au cœur de la répression des journalistes camerounais. Paul Biya, le plus vieux dirigeant élu en exercice au monde, utilise aujourd'hui l'architecture juridique antiterroriste pour bâillonner toute critique, une instrumentalisation grossière qui ne connaît malheureusement pas de frontières. À la répression et aux arrestations arbitraires s'ajoutent les tentatives de corruption du corps journalistique pour en faire un outil de propagande. Des solutions s'offrent à tous ceux qui, à l'instar du Parlement, prétendent agir pour le changement. 1. Réviser les lois antiterroristes. 2. Abolir les procédures de jugement de civils devant les tribunaux militaires. Et 3. Défendre la tenue d'une mission des Nations Unies sur les violations des droits humains déjà votée ici au Parlement en 2021. Il est urgent d'agir car pour certains, il est déjà trop tard. Jean-Jacques Olabébé, Samuel Ouazizi ou encore Martinez Sogo sont tous les trois déjà morts. La presse doit demeurer la tribune du peuple. La censure est l'arme de ceux qui ont déjà tout perdu. Je vous remercie.
You see, this is the pressure that Biya faces from Europe to other countries. But imagine what this lady is saying. That law that we were talking about, you remember they gave Seseko Ayoktabe and the others life imprisonment without trial. Abdul Karim, life imprisonment without trial. It's the same thing that the European, this lady is talking here about, where they use that thing. Okay, take for example, all these leaders, they're all civilians, but they are being tried in the military court. Okay, they are tried in the military tribunal. You know, we understand different countries and their laws and everything, but we understand that the common law does not work like that. The common law will not allow civilians to be ruled or to be judged in a military court. Okay? Even if you arrest a military today, like for example in America where I am, if you arrest a military today, they will send you to military court because that is the court that knows the law governing that military. Okay? But you cannot arrest a civilian in America and take them to a military court. Never. Because they know nothing about why are you taking them to military court in the first place? Because you can just write laws, pass decrees, and they just pass. You just think that it's okay to use them now to repress opposition. That is what Biya and the regime did. All these people that pass through, that are going through political marginalization, all these people are being held by this law that Biya put in place against terrorism, that they are fighting terrorism, because they know that the international community is actually fighting terrorism, right? But they are using that against their own people. Terrorism. That's the word they like to use. We have seen the neglect that has happened along the years. But irrespective of that, the international media has taken this and they are discussing it. Some people think that the Ambazonian struggle ends only, they say, social media, or they say this. No. Governments did. Wait, are these not parliamentarians talking it? Are these not government officials talking about the Ambazonian struggle? So how do you say we are not winning? If people start talking on your behalf, know that you are winning, right? Because this is European Parliament, this is Italian, the EU representative of the Italian Parliament. All these are people talking about it. Now you get a CNN. This is CNN Africa. Take this. Just watch this. CNN Africa talking about it. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. You can talk. There's no excuse.
Judd, if you are somebody from West Africa, from parts of Central Africa, of course, you likely do know about the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon. But this war does seem to get very little attention in the international media. It does seem to be relatively less well known than, say, what's happening in Tigray. Why is that?
Well, I think that it's been neglected, and that's been a real tragedy. And the reasons are pretty self-explanatory. This is a very complex crisis in a medium-sized country, and it's been simmering since 2016, 2017. And so most of the international media, not your program, of course, doesn't spend a lot of time on Africa. And so they're focused on Ethiopia or the Sahel or Nigeria. These are easier to convey to international communities what the stakes are. But Cameroon ends up getting short shrift. I would note that the international community, diplomats, the US Congress, Africans are engaged on this topic and on this crisis, but they're not having much effect.
So what can the regional community, obviously France and Cameroon have a good working relationship as well, what can the regional community actually do to create some kind of resolution, to work towards some kind of ceasefire?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of challenges, right? First of all, the government so far has only made very superficial concessions. It's really dragged its feet. And on the side of the Anglophones, well, it's very divided, very fragmented. You've got elements that are for peace, just the cessation of conflict. You've got elements that want a new federal or confederal arrangement, and then you've got the secessionists, and some of them can be very hardline, very violent, attacking civilians, attacking each other, and so this has been difficult because who do you negotiate? I think the international community, though, and we've seen the Swiss do this a little bit, can bring these sides together to set up some agreed upon standards and agreed upon benchmarks for moving towards peace, but we're going to have to see a more robust and higher level engagement if we want to move forward.
And from France's perspective, they're unlikely to put that much pressure on Cameroon at this point in time. Cameroon has been very useful to France in terms of fighting terrorism. It's been very useful in terms of welcoming refugees from the Central African Republic. So Paris, Emmanuel Macron, they're unlikely to rock the boat too much at this time.
Yeah, you nailed it, right? Cameroon's an incredibly important counterterrorism partner for French. It's also important for the Central African Republic. And President Paul Biya of Cameroon has this long relationship with Paris, going back decades. So they're unlikely to upset the apple cart. And finally, and we see this with Paris's relationship across the region, they don't want to do things in a public manner. They don't want to potentially embarrass their former colonies. So everything is quiet. Everything is sort of behind the scenes. And it's not to say they haven't condemned some of the human rights abuses or called for dialogue.
I've listened to the opinion. This is CNN Africa, of course. And you know, CNN is America's top channel. This is CNN Africa talking about the crisis. So you can tell the credibility of the crisis, right? But let's talk about the points that this guy rose about the crisis. Number one, he talked about neglect. We have seen neglect of this crisis by especially Cameroon government and France trying to block any avenue for discussions. That is the goal. The modus operandi of France and the Cameroon government is to block any avenue for discussion. Okay, because they know that the history is on our side. Okay, the United Nations is on our side. Okay, the law, international law is on our side. So what do they want to go and discuss on the negotiation table? That is the problem. Okay, and we saw this in the two discussion that we had with the Cameroon government officials. Okay, in Switzerland, the delegation that they sent, They were coming to look at how to bribe the leaders. La Republique has been corrupted in such a way that in anything they do, they only look at how to corrupt people to get their way through. Okay, in Canada, the same thing happened. They came with a prepared plan or with a prepared discussion plan. You cannot, or with a prepared discussion plan. You cannot go for negotiation. Negotiation doesn't have work like that. Negotiation is to negotiate, to discuss. It's a 50-50 discussion process. You cannot bring your agenda or your topic of discussion to a negotiation table and you expect the mediator to go with that. That's why Canada and Switzerland had to back out, because they said Switzerland, don't forget, Switzerland was a mediator, the main mediator in the crisis that happened between Sudan and South Sudan. So they have experience. They have a lot of experience in negotiation processes. Okay, so whatever the Cameroon government was trying to do in those processes was to use bribe and corruption to corrupt the leaders and corrupt the mediator. But you cannot do that when people are ready to discuss real discussion. It cannot happen. That's why they fail. Okay, the Cameroon government failed because they could not bribe their way as they have done in all majority of the things that they do in is bribe, how to bribe leaders, how to corrupt officials, how to do this and do that and do that. History is on our side. Everything is on our side. But let's focus on the neglect. The neglect of this crisis is far more based to the same bribery and corruption. Any official that went to Cameroon, whether African Union, EU officials, just imagine Atanganji, the Minister of Territorial Administration, is going to Vatican, do the installation of the Pope, is trying to give the money. I think everybody saw that, right? Trying to bribe Pope, for that matter. That's how corruption has eaten the nooks and crannies of that country, Cameroon. They don't have shame to corrupt somebody now. Okay, and that is the problem. But the international community understand this, yet with the pressure France is putting on them, with all the discussion going on, there is no way inside. France is trying to veto any discussion on at the United Nations Security Council, despite all the atrocities committed by the Cameroon government military on the people of southern Cameroon. Yet France would prefer to stall it. Okay, that's their job. Their job is to go to that to European Union or to EU Parliament or to African Union. They'll send their all this. That is what they do. Okay, those countries that have been very upright against France is losing grip on Africa. So they'll do everything to hold on to the last countries that they have. Remember, in Africa, France had 14 countries, and they have lost about 6 of them. Yes, from Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, about 6 of those 14 have been lost to, so they are trying to hold on to the few, like Cameroon, which is the headquarter of CEMAC, the Central African countries. It's Cameroon, the headquarters. So if they lost Cameroon, it would be very, very difficult for them to hold on to Congo, Gabon, all these other countries. because they're still using France currency. They're still using France money. They're still using French weapons. They're still using French bond system. They ship all their monies to France. Then they'll try to help them manage their money for them. How do you grant people independence, but you still hold them down financially? You hold them to still pay allegiance to you. That is our own bone of contention. Okay, see what happens in 1961. They asked us to join Nigeria or to join French Cameroon. Join Nigeria or to join French. On our part and our people back then, the experience that they had, 40 years we were being ruled together with Nigeria by the British colonial rule. Don't forget, we had a governor in Nigeria and a governor in Boya. For 40 years we were being ruled together. That's how sometimes they can call us Biafra, because the parliament was in Enugu. So our parents left Boya, our parliamentarians left Boya, and they were going back to Enugu. What happened? In 1952, they realized that they were being marginalized, they were being mistreated in Nigeria. So they had to leave. Okay. They had to leave the Nigerian house of Enugu and came back to Boya and formed two houses. One was the upper house, one was the lower house. The upper house was the House of Commons. The lower house was the House of Chiefs. All was in Boya. There was no House of Chief in Bamenda, House of Chief in Boya, Northwest, Southwest House of Chief. Those are all framework that they are trying to do today. Everything was in the capital city of Boya. Okay. And imagine people who already ruled themselves from 1952 up to 1960. Then they already ran two prime ministers already. First prime minister was EML Endele. Second prime minister was Foncha. They already had smooth elections. You never heard the day that if you want to land, if you take a plane, you go and land in Douala Airport. No, there was Tico International Airport. Tico International Airport, not local airport. Our goods, Limbe Seaport was there already. Mondimba Port was there. They were already, so Southern Cameroon was already a functional state. There come now in 1960. When the United Nations want to grant their independence, they were asking them to choose between the Anglo-Saxon of Nigeria or the Franco-Saxon of Francophones to live with them. But because of the experience that our people had gone through in Nigeria, they were more favorable to living, to change, to test the waters with the French Cameroon. So they were more inclined to test the waters to live with French Cameroon. And that was what happened. In 1961, there comes that thing they call the plebiscite, where there was a vote in the United Nations. So all these countries you see today, they voted for the independence of Southern Cameroon. From America to UK to Canada to go and check it. You see the record. All the countries that voted yes for the independence of Southern Cameroon. 64 countries voted yes. The countries that voted no were most of the France, this Franco, even Cameroon voted no for the independence of Southern Cameroon. The country that baffles me is a country like Norway. Norway voted for the independence of Southern Cameroon. But today, they are going to arrest one of our leaders, Ayabacho. You know, these are things, these are history. But it makes sense when you understand the history. Before you start talking, all the trash that people are talking around. Okay. When in 2011, the United Nations delegation went right to Yaoundé with 2 maps. Go and check the archive. They went and they were giving Pobia like this. Little did Pobia know that assimilation will not work now. Because they gave him 2 flags and they were telling him that, hey, this is Southern Cameroon. Cameroon is very blessed, maker of 2 countries. This is Southern Cameroon flag. This is the map of Southern Cameroon, and this is the flag. This is the map of French Cameroon. United Nations delegation before the crisis. So you see, so this is not something that people think that they go and fabricate in the market. You don't fabricate laws in the market. You don't fabricate international law. It is there in the archive of the United Nations. Everything that we say today is already there in the United Nations because Southern Cameroon existed. You see, it's not something. So what we are doing today is for the restoration. When you restore something, you look for the recognition of that state. That's what we are doing today. We are not trying to create a new nation like people are saying because they don't know the history. No, go and check the history. Southern Cameroon got her independence in 1961. Like any other African country that got her independence during that period of independence and the end of the colonial era. But after that period, any country that did not get her independence was either occupied by another country in Africa. That's what they call the black on black colonization or the new colonization that is being practiced by France. Because all French colony, they still have French franc. None of them has their own currency. That's what we call new colonization. That is they say, okay, you are independent, but they still hold your tail. You're not independent. You are not independent. You are still dependent. Because imagine France has to force all these countries, 14 of them. They had to sign the pact. They call it the colonial pact. And that is why we get mad today, because Cameroon is one of those 14 countries. So they're trying to engulf us. They're trying to engulf Ambazonian Southern Cameroon in that pact. Since our independence, we have been engulfed by that pact that's signed by France. That's why our constitution was eradicated. Our institutions were eradicated. Our currency, we came with British pounds. We're using the British pounds. Yeah. Pounds and shillings. That was the currency we were using. Our maps, everything was eradicated. Just because they wanted to assimilate, the policy of assimilation with the French. That is what happened. So today we see that even they tried and tried and tried. It did not work. That is why people are trying to look at the thing as if they will call you all kinds of names. Oh, the separatists, the terrorists, they this. But the United Nations, the EU, all these people do not know the people of Southern Cameroon as terrorists. They know them as people fighting for a legitimate cause. It's a legitimate cause. It has nothing to do with what, some people have their own opinion. Your opinion does not change history. Because the history is there. The history is there. How do you go and change the history? How? How do you go and rewrite history? You want to rewrite history? How? The people of Southern Cameroon got their independence 1 year after La République du Cameroon. So when La République du Cameroon got her independence, we were not part of the picture with them. We had nothing to do with La République du Cameroon when they got their independence. We were self-governed. They came and imposed their French. The old, I mean, when I saw these things, I'm like, you know that Cameroon is still using the French constitution, the old French constitution. That same barbaric constitution, that's what they are using. When they topple, you remember France had what they call the French Revolution. They had to fight for their own independence too. When you hear of the Napoleonic War, Napoleonic War, go read history. That was a constitution that was being used by that old dictators. It's what France is implementing in all these their French colonial countries. Tell me, how can you develop when you're still dependent on France, when you're still dependent on your former colonial power? You want to buy, okay, just take for example, you want to buy materials for your military, you have to buy from France. If France say, oh, I don't have this material, before you can buy it in any other country. Your resources, if you want to sell your resources, you have to ask France, do you want cocoa? If France say, no, I don't have cocoa, want cocoa, I have enough cocoa, you can sell it out to another country. That is how it is up till this date. So France can do everything to destabilize every country. When I read that thing about the coups, the political coup d'etat that has happened in Africa, I was so shocked. Even though you cannot be shocked that almost 20 to 20 something of those coup d'etat were being organized by France. So all these countries are just afraid that they can be toppled by French government. You know, in the what they call fighting for terrorism. They say they fight against terrorism. When they are coming to topple your government, they will use the same people that they train to topple you. You know, that's how it works. But at least the figure will not surprise you, because they say France was part of more than 20 something coup d'etat that has happened in Africa. Almost half was done by France. So imagine the influence that France carries. I was surprised when I heard about when I read through the organigram of the African Union. There's a representative of France in the African Union. I'm like, what is he doing there? Can you have an African representative in EU? But there's a representative of France sitting in the African Union. Hi, Africa. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to go. Long way to go. Yeah. The EU will call for inclusive dialogue. They will call for ceasefire. They will condemn. They will call for this. But how far is all this condemnation going? In one of my shows, I was talking about sanctions. Okay. When will the EU or the United Nations or America or Canada, all these countries, sit down and give a very strong sanction on this dictatorial government? When? I don't know the amount of people that can be killed for a government to be held responsible for genocide, because La Republic have passed a threshold. More than 70,000 of Southern Cameroon have lost their life in this crisis. So I don't understand what criteria they use to measure genocide. I don't understand how do they measure it. How many people can a government kill? When they accuse Saddam Hussein of terrorism, or any other person that was accused of terrorism, how many people did they kill? How many? So what is the measurement? How many people can you kill for you to be judged or to be tried, sent to the ICC or ICJ, International Criminal Court, for crimes against humanity. What measuring rod do they use? Because Paul Biya has done it all. Paul Biya has done it all. And he's still doing it now. So I don't know if they are just pitying his age to send him for trial or what. Okay. But no, irrespective of what happened, all these government officials that are using this war for their own benefit, they will go for to the ICC. They will go for questioning and they'll be held responsible. Okay. Our own goal has been achieved in the fact that the crisis has been internationalized. Everybody knows about the crisis now. Okay, in the most part, our people are still suffering because of lack of humanitarian access, where Cameroon government don't allow access to food and all this other humanitarian support. But that notwithstanding, the people of Southern Cameroon still stand tall. Okay, all the mistreatment by the Cameroon government to render our people homeless, will not work in any way. Will not work in any way, and it has not worked for the past 9 years. So not this time around. Okay, we've heard all the leaders came together. All these Amazonian leaders came together and they have condemned anything to do with election. The Restoration Freedom Fighters have also declared total lockdown. So during the election period, it will not be easy. Stay safe. Don't go and lose your life because you want to go and vote Paul Biya. CPGM has already won the election. Don't waste your time in going to be running for election. Amazonians are not part of that because we don't belong there. You cannot force yourself to belong to some people that they know that you are not part of them. In 1972, when they held a referendum, what did they discover in Southern Cameroon? Oil. What happened? Then come right in 1982 when Ahidjo wanted to hand over power, right? A Hausa-man want to hand over power to. If it was just that they want freedom or like equity, if you want equity, you must come with clean hands. If the people of, if Ahidjo was thinking of the people of Southern Cameroon to share power, because that's the only thing that can even convince some of us that these people want us to live together. Power sharing. But even now, as Paul Biya is dying, he changed the constitution and removed the position of a vice president. And who was the first vice president? It was not even Amazonian or Southern Cameroonian. Paul Biya himself was the first vice president when Ahidjo that did it. They were preparing something. Then they come now and say, okay, because our people have started aggravated, the NCNC came up. All these organizations that came up to avenge and revenge the mistreatment of our people in Cameroon back then were the ones that will have to start giving glory to, because they fought hard before there were that changes, until it's after now they say, hey, if they want to give any position, that is prime minister, it must be someone from Southern Cameroon, because they realize that the position of prime minister is number 5 or no, whether number 4 or whatever, but it's not even close. The president now, why do you think they created the Senate? The Senate was created so that they can use that Senate president as a second person. who is the senior president today is Nyat Jifendi, right? It's not Southern Cameroonian. You go now to the next person, the Speaker of the House. Because if the President of the Senate cannot take over when Pobia dies, is the next, who is that? Is the Speaker of the House. Who is that? Is the Kavaye Yege. If the Speaker of the House is incapacitated, who takes over? The President of the Constitutional Council. So you see then before you reach the Prime Minister, you have passed like 3 people. See how the politics works. Then you go to vote. You say, oh, so I saw Akeremuna. He was crying. Oh, all this one they call OZ. You are wasting your time. I've not seen the support that when we went out to vote back then for SDF in the 90s. SDF was strong in Kumba. CPGM never won in Kumba. Never. For how many years? SDF was all Kumba. You hear about Kumba back then. We voted for SDF continuously. CPGM did not see the light in Kumba. But when Frundi went through all this mago politics, Kumba, SDF Kumba just died like that. That's how CPGM took all the parliamentarians now, Boya, Fako, Mehmet, to all parliamentarians, CPGM. But at the end of the day, what was the role of the SDF? The SDF was not created to be a political party. The SDF was created like the SCNC. But because they wanted to see how they can fight from within, they cannot. You cannot win that kind of fight. Fighting from within. That's what Fruity was saying, right? They see how he died. He died without achieving his fighting from within. Fighting from within. The thing that Molan Jolly to be said is that if these people want us to live together, then they have to give us president for the number of time that they have owned president. Aijo ruled for 22 years. Bia 43 years now. How many is that? 60. How many years? So if they want us to really live together, they have to hand us the presidency. Not going to election. We don't need all these people running for election. No. Just okay, Anglophone, Southern Cameroon, take them. We to rule for that same amount of time and hand it to them back. That's the only thing that can really make us live together. Because they don't see us like people who can even be president. Because Frundi won 2 times. 2 times. Biya never accepted to give Frundi. Whereas Frundi won the election. So, okay, when do you think there can be free and fair election? When Biya leaves, the next president come again, stay another 20 years. The next one come another 40 years. Please, just don't get yourself into trouble this time around. Our people have had enough. So allow them to get into the election thing and fool themselves that they are running election. Because there have never been any election in Cameroon. Never. It's just CPGM manipulation and whatever and so on and so forth. So let them run the election. Don't bring your election in Ambazonia thinking that you want to come and do something. Because it has no effect on our people. Nothing. Zero. So don't worry yourself to come and say you want to, election will help. Election will help for how many years? Since when we joined these people, what benefit can you say you have achieved from these people? They only come and drain your resources. Southern Cameroon is one of the richest countries. But they only CDC alone can employ all our youth. CDC. Not to talk of the other industries that have been there. But our youth lack job today. We are rich, but dying poor. Thank you for watching. We'll have another show. Thank you and God bless our people. God bless the people of Southern Cameroon. make sure you subscribe to my channel because I'll be coming on most of the time to talk about a lot of issues. So make sure you subscribe. God bless you. God bless the people of Southern Cameroon. Ambazunia.